Hello, students. Did you miss me? Let's tidy up this web. First, let's learn to group blocks into clusters by their purpose. For example, these three blocks are responsible for moving the character forward. So, you can select them and combine them by pressing Ctrl J. Be sure to label the resulting frame. This will make it easier to navigate the code. In the right panel, which you can open with the N button, go to the Node tab, and in the label field, write something short and concise so that it's immediately clear from the label what this section of code is responsible for. You can label this frame as Move Forward. It's better to use capital letters when typing for better visibility and clarity. Select the next three blocks, press Ctrl J, label the frame as Move Back. The remaining two groups are, respectively, Move Left and Move Right. There you go. It's already better, but we are just getting started. Today, we'll play the perfectionists and try to make everything so clear that even a 3-year-old child entering this branch would immediately understand what's what. The second technique that will help us is colors. If all frames are of the same black color, that's not good. We have the opportunity to paint frames in different colors, and it's a great way to visually separate code sections. For example, right now and always, let's agree that we will paint all the code with transformations in blue. Select the frame. In the Node tab, activate the color checkbox. The frame will turn gray, after which we will have access to the color selection palette, by clicking on which we can choose a color. Avoid high saturation values, as such colors distract attention and make it difficult to see the contents inside. The value should not be too high, otherwise, the label will blend with the background and be hard to read. Also, you shouldn't lower the value too much, as this makes the color unreadable. In general, coloring is interesting, but let's not go overboard. Everything should be balanced. Now let's focus on color copying. The thing is, if we try to select the same color from the palette for other frames now, in the end, we will have 4 frames with different shades of blue. And since we are playing the perfectionists, let's copy the same color for all frames. I suggest considering only 3 of the most popular ways to copy color. We go into each frame, one by one, and check the color parameter. Now all 3 frames have a gray color. Select the first frame that we've already colored. Click on the palette. Switch it to hex. No need to click anywhere with the mouse cursor. Just hover the cursor over the value and copy it using Ctrl-C. Now select the second frame, go to the palette, hover the cursor over the hex value. And again, without any mouse clicks, simply paste the copied value using Ctrl-V. And so on. Select the frame, open the palette, hover the cursor, press Ctrl-V. Frame, palette, Ctrl-V. There you go. That was method number 1. The most tedious, slow, and boring one. Let's roll back and switch to the second method. To copy the color, you don't need to open the palette and copy the hex code. It's enough to simply hover the cursor over the color and press Ctrl-C. Then, select the second frame, hover the cursor over the color, and press Ctrl-V. Select the frame, paste the color. Click on the frame, Ctrl-V. More interesting, right? Now, imagine you have 500 frames. In that case, you need a more radical method of copying data. Let's roll back to the state where the color checkbox is not active for the 3 frames. Now, we need to select all the frames. The colored one should be selected last. Currently, it has a brighter highlight, indicating that it is the actively selected item. We can see its properties in the right panel. This frame will be our reference, and we will copy its settings to all the other selected objects. First, let's copy the color parameter. Hover the cursor over the checkbox, right-click, and in the context menu, choose Copy to Selected. The 3 frames turned gray, indicating that the color parameter is activated. Now, let's copy the color. Hover the cursor over the color, right-click, and choose Copy to Selected. The frames are now uniformly colored. Let's now talk about moving blocks and frames. You can drag blocks both with the mouse by grabbing them by the header and through the G key, just like any object in the viewport. Select a block, press G to move it. A left click places the block in a new location. A right click or escape cancels the movement and resets the block to its original position. If you're dragging a block with the mouse, I strongly recommend grabbing it only by the header. This is because if you click anywhere else, you may inadvertently change settings without realizing it. Frames can be moved in the same way. You can move a selected frame with G, along with its contents, even if the blocks inside are not selected. Or if the cursor takes on a certain appearance, it means you can move the frame with the mouse. If you select and move a block inside a frame, the frame will expand and contract depending on the position of the child element. If you select all the blocks inside a frame but do not select the frame itself, the frame will still move along with the blocks. Another point to note is that if you want to detach a block from the frame, you need to select that block and press Alt-P. Just like in the viewport. If you want to attach a block to the frame, simply select the block and drag it into the frame. However, there's a nuance here. It's not the position of the block that matters, but the position of the mouse cursor. For example, if you grab the block by the left corner and place its right side on the frame, it won't attach to the frame. But if you do it the other way around, the block will immediately become part of the group. The key moment is that the cursor needs to enter the frame. This is especially important when dragging blocks using the G key. Look here. I select the block, press G, drag the block into the frame, and release it. And it might seem like it worked, but in reality, it didn't. The block is not part of the group. That's because the mouse cursor was outside the frame. Or sometimes, it can be the other way around. Our goal isn't to attach the block to the frame, we simply want to move it closer. Select the block, press G, move it closer, and the block is still at a sufficient distance from the frame. But look at the cursor, it has crossed the frame boundary and is inside it. Therefore, a left click will attach the block to the frame, and it will become part of the group. Now let's move the frames a bit. I suggest placing them uniformly. Frames with positive values above each other and inverted in the second column. Now, take a look at this tangle of wires. When they pass under the blocks, it's sometimes unclear what's connected to what. So let's untangle them. You can use routers for this. Hold Shift and right-click on a cable, and a node appears on it. Nodes can only be moved using the G key. If you try to grab them with the mouse, the cable will be pulled out of them. And you can connect it to any slots. If you draw across multiple separate cables simultaneously, each of them will have its own separate router. If cables came out of the same slot, they would be combined into a single router. A couple more tricks. If you want to quickly cut a cable, hold Ctrl and right-click on the cable. If you want your blocks to snap to a grid, then move them with the Ctrl key held down. Or if you're too lazy to press the key each time, then enable snap mode. Right here. To save space, you can collapse blocks using the arrow in the header or the H key. I wouldn't recommend doing this without a good reason because it hides the code. And when searching for errors, you'll have to expand the collapsed blocks to check their contents. This takes time and effort. Don't place blocks too close to each other. All connections should be readable. There should be 3 or 4 cells between blocks. They align well when using snap alignment. Here you go. The picture became prettier. We can arrange the last 2 blocks. The first block returns the value of the speed variable. And I'll add an orange frame to it. And from now on, I'll use this color for all operations with variables. Let's add a label to the frame, get speed. The last block inverts the speed variable. Let's add a red frame to it and sign it invert speed. Well, you can also select everything and add one large frame. And sign it with player movement. There is no need to paint it. You can leave it black. Or activate the color checkbox, then the frame will turn gray. We can talk about order and optimization forever, but we will limit ourselves to the essentials. That's all for today. Bye-bye.